One of the most important things you can do for your physical health is your joint range of motion. As you get older, it's the loss of range of motion in your joints that's going to cause the most amount of pain, dysfunction, and tightness in your muscles and everywhere else in your body. So daily, working on your joint mobility is important. We're going to do this using what's called a CARS routine, Controlled Articular Rotations. Controlled, meaning you do them very slow in a controlled fashion. You're going to try to move the joint, whatever joint you're working on, you're going to try to move the joint through its full rotational range of motion, as wide an arc as you can do, slow and controlled, trying to reach the outer barriers of that arc the whole way around. You're going to try to dissociate movement not only in the joint, so in other words between the two bones, not having, if this is the capsule, this is the joint, you don't want them moving like this, you want them moving almost in opposite directions. While one stabilizes, one moves. But also coupling of other joints. So for example, if I'm moving my shoulder, I don't want to be bending my elbow or moving my shoulder blade or rotating my spine. So to do that, what you want to do is irradiate some tension in your body. Not a tremendous amount, but maybe about 30%. Another way you could think about this is if rather than I'm moving my arm through the air, think about I'm moving my arm through kind of soup or gel that's about 30% in viscosity, so 30% thicker than the air. So to do that, I'm going to have to hold the rest of me still while I try to push my arm through that soup. Okay? That's what I want you to focus on as we go through each of these joints. Let's start with the neck. You're going to tilt your head forward as far as you can. You're going to rotate to one side. You're going to laterally tip your ear to that shoulder, trying not to spill your shoulders or move. Tip back over to the one side, staying rotated and laterally bent to that side. Now you're going to go backwards. Now you're going to rotate over to the other side, laterally tip over to that shoulder with your ear, down and forward. So we'll go around in 2 rotations each direction. Next, we'll do the spine. Put your arms across your chest. You're going to think about driving your sternum through your spine to round each segment, or you're going to bring your sternum out to arch your back as far as you can go. So you're going to flex forward. You're going to rotate. Laterally tip to that side, not letting your hips move out. You're going to extend back, not letting your hips go forward or backwards. Staying backwards as far as you can. Rotate over to this side, bend to that side, forward. Shoulder. You're going to move your shoulder blade and your glenohumeral joint. So we'll start with the shoulder blade. Start with your arm about 30 degrees out. You're going to bring your shoulder blade up, not tilting your head or moving your spine. Bring your shoulder blade up, rotate it back, drop it down into your pocket, bring it forward, can do it with both shoulder blades together. Bring your shoulder blades up, rotate them forward, bring them down, rotate them back, up. The goal is not to just roll your shoulder blades around, but try to move them through as big an arc as possible. Good. Next is your glenohumeral joint. This time I don't want you moving your shoulder blade. I don't want you moving your spine or rotating your torso. You're going to keep that frozen and move that ball through that joint. So in front, you're going to have external rotation of the shoulder. And behind, you're going to have internal. So as if you're trying to reach for your shoulder blade or to under your bra strap. Bring your arm across, don't spill this way. Bring your arm across, you're gonna bring it up until you reach your barrier. Now, whether that barrier you feel is here or whether you feel it here, you're gonna bring it up till you reach your barrier so you don't do the rest with your shoulder blade or your spine. Hit a barrier, now you're gonna rotate this outwards. You're gonna continue to rotate the arm bone inwards as you reach back, and as you come around, what you're going to find is your elbow pointing outward and your palm pointing outward. You're going to keep it that way and rotate back until you feel a barrier. Don't want to spill forward. When you hit that barrier, you're going to rotate around, up, and over. So you do both rotations in both directions with both arms. For the elbow, put your other hand into your elbow just so you avoid any motion of your shoulder joint, either rotating, bending forward and backward. We're going to isolate the elbow joint. Extension, flexion, supination, and pronation. Now, while you're seeing a lot of motion in my hand, the focus is on what's rotating right at my elbow. So I'm going to supinate, I'm going to flex, I'm going to fully pronate, I'm going to extend as far as I can. Keep it pronated, back up, supinate as far as I can, extend as far as I can. For the wrist, now we want to avoid movement, supination, pronation of the forearm and the elbow. We want to try to keep that still. So just put your hand across there so you can sense when you're starting to move your forearm, because that's not moving my wrist. I want to isolate the motion in the wrist. So if I extend back, then I'm going to tilt inward, bring it up as far as I can. Tilt outward, not very far you're going to be able to go. Keep tilting outward as you come backwards, so you're going through as wide an arc as you can. For the hip joint, I'm going to show you to do it standing and lying down. In standing, either grab one or two posts, anything, hockey stick, pole, whatever, just to help stabilize yourself so you can irradiate through there and you're not worrying about balance. You don't want to be spilling or moving your pelvis either way. You want to try and isolate the motion right into your hip joint. As I bring this leg up, I don't want to spill or move this leg or my pelvis. So I'm going to flex my knee up as high as I can bring it, not banging myself forward, but keeping my torso still. I'm going to try to turn outward as much as my groin will allow, again, not letting my pelvis rotate or my right leg spill. Bring it out, Then I'm going to try to turn my ankle towards the ceiling while I keep my knee up. When I reach that barrier, I'm going to keep on trying to turn it upwards as I turn backwards and around. So I'm in an internal rotation. I'm going to come up, and around. So essentially we're doing the same thing with the hip that we just did with the shoulder joint. An alternative form of range of motion for your hip would be on your side. You want to grab a weight or bench, anything you can kind of stabilize yourself. It's just so you're not rotating your torso or your pelvis, because you want to isolate, just move your hip. So your femur, your main leg bone, is the only bone you want to feel moving. You're trying to keep everything else stiff. So holding on to something will help you irradiate a little bit. Try and move that leg through that range of motion. Again, feeling like you're moving it through some soup. And bring your knee up, out, externally rotate, up and around and down, up as far as you can. Open up your pelvis, keeping your knee up. Try to point your ankle to the sky. When you reach a barrier, reach back, keep rotating your ankle toward the sky, up. So it's internally rotating. Now I'm going to externally rotate, up and around. And you do that with both hips. For your knee, we're going to focus on two movements. Obviously you've got flexion and extension of the knee. Everyone's aware of that, but you also have rotation of the knee. It's not a lot of movement, but if you focus on your shin bone, rotate it in, rotate it out. You can practice by pivoting just on your heel. Yes, my ankle's moving, but the focus is what's happening right around the knee. So if I brace my knee, I'm going to rotate in, this bone goes in. I'm going to rotate it out, that bone goes out. So if I rotate out, then I'm going to extend, rotate it in, flex down. With the ankle, now I'm going to try to keep my shin still. So what I would suggest is putting fingers across your shin bone to feel whether that bone is moving in different orientation. You don't want to now move the tibia or the shin, you want to just move the ankle. So I'm going to flex it up, turn it out, down, cross, up. For the toes, we want to start to dissociate movement in the toes. Ultimately, if we could, we want to actually establish monkey feet, so we could actually grab the ground with our feet. Makes us a lot more stable. And one thing that happens to the feet as we get older is we lose a lot of range of motion because we spend so much time in shoes, often shoes that aren't very good for our feet. So just to move the toes, what I want you to do is dissociate movement between the big toes and the smaller toes. So if the smaller toes stay down, the big toes come up and down, up and down. And the big toes stay down, smaller toes come up. Then I want you to bring all toes up. Touch the big toes, down. Touch the big toes down. And keep the big toes up and small toes down.